Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. So, this is not really a topic that I like to discuss, but I feel like it's really important. I have actually mentioned a lot of these things in many of my past videos, but I thought it might be helpful to someone to put all these in one video. And there's actually a lot more that I could share, more examples. But this is what came to mind for this video, and it's going to be long enough. So I'm going to try my best to keep this closer to 20 minutes or half an hour and not go into my typical 45 minutes plus. So again, I hope you're doing good today. I hope that you get something from the message. I hope it's beneficial to you, and I just thank you so much for coming along to hear it. So what we're going to be talking about today are how are there going to be real life stories. Let me start with that. I'm going to be giving some real life examples of red flags that we catch on some level, but they don't get registered in our conscious awareness as red flags. And we're going to talk about why too. The thing is, you have to be careful if you're in the middle of experiencing these things. You have to be careful about sharing this stuff with people because they could be indicating something very serious that could literally have you in a situation of great danger, and you haven't figured that out yet. And if you go and share these things with some people, they may just kind of diminish them or dismiss them altogether and just say like, oh, that's no big deal. They may tell you like, hey, that's really not a big deal, or they might laugh at it, or say you're just being paranoid or whatever. And I think that we have such a aversion to is it stigma? Like being stigmatized, I think is the word. I haven't used that word in years. I don't even know if that's the right word. But being associated, we have like this great aversion to being associated with being considered in a negative light, like being thought of as crazy or paranoid or just anything negative at all. A liar, and so here's the thing. You have to be really strong in yourself. And if you're not, then you're going to go through these experiences, unfortunately, or you may anyway. I think a healthy person who's strong in themselves, if they find themselves in a situation with someone where there are red flags, they're not going to stick around very long. That's my opinion based on what all I've been through. But I think if you have been conditioned a certain way in your childhood or for any extensive period in your life or whatever has created this way of life within you that's sort of like you're humble to the point of, to the degree of not being really sure of yourself, and I don't think that really, I shouldn't have used the word humble because it's really not the same. You can be humble and still be sure of yourself. So let me just say that. But my point here is, if there's any weakness in your ability to trust yourself, then I think sometimes we have to go through these experiences and we're going to come out of them learning how to be sure of ourselves. We don't have to be sure about a certain situation because, again, I've mentioned recently, you don't have to know every part of a situation to be sure. I don't think that's even possible, to know every single detail to a situation, even if it's made available to you. There's always tiny bits and pieces that may actually be important that would change your perspective altogether, and I think it's impossible to get every little fragment. And so we have to go on what we have. And as much as I don't like making assumptions, I think that it's necessary to not view it that way so much as just keep your focus on trusting yourself. So I want to open with that. I hope you're doing good. So let me start out by sharing what I feel like are the biggest detractors from detecting life-saving red flags, okay, in your conscious awareness. Let me add that part. I would say they are fear and confusion. And people who are cons, people who are snowing you over, they're exploiting you, whatever it is, they're going to use tactics that, if you really examine them up close, you zoom in and really just spend some time analyzing this stuff, you're going to see how there is an essence or an energy or an intention of fear or confusion at the root of it. Okay? That's going to wind up being what manipulates you to play into whatever it is they have planned, whatever their schemes are that you're unaware of. Now, the good news is, we may think that we're not catching red flags sometimes, but I think, based on my experience, you are catching the red flags. They're just not being logged into your forefront of your mind, your conscious awareness. Instead, they're being logged in your subconscious. And so as you're experiencing these things that are very confusing, and sometimes you feel a little bit fearful, as you're experiencing these things, your trust in yourself is going to be built up slowly, okay, over time. And as this happens, all these red flags that were in fact logged in your mind move from the subconscious part of your psyche up here to the conscious awareness part of your psyche. And that's when you get the motivation to take action. But if we can share these things with one another, we can validate one another's experiences. Hopefully, we can help expedite that process in others. And the whole point here is that we want to save lives. A lot of us can look back on things that we thought were not a big deal, and we can realize that if we had seen them differently in the moment, with the wisdom we have now, we would have ran for our lives. And so some of the stories I'm going to be sharing today are going to be some of mine, and from all different parts of my life experience, and then also some from other people that I know that they've shared with me. So I hope they're helpful. Let me also start by saying this. Labels and titles are a trap. And here's why. And I'm not saying don't ever call somebody like your boyfriend or your girlfriend, or, you can't call your spouse your spouse. I'm just saying that when someone is able to secure a position in your life, that's what I mean, like by a label or a title. Those positions are associated with trust. Like, trust is assumed in those roles. And the problem with that is, and I'm thinking about like labels such as spouse or friend, or even like a family member, family in itself, or mother, or brother, uncle, whatever it is. These titles have an automatic association in our mind with trust. Like, oh, well, you can trust your mom. Well, I know somebody who's no longer here, but his mother opened many credit cards in his name. He was totally unaware of it and ruined his credit before he even was a full-grown adult. So it's just, and I know you know this, but I think that reminding ourselves of some things and doing deep dives in some things are going to help us going forward to not log the red flags in our subconscious, but in the forefront of our mind, and do something right away. Because that could be the difference. If you act sooner rather than later, like to remove yourself from a potentially dangerous situation, that could be life-saving, right? And that's my point. So that's the moral of the story. And all these stories I'm going to share with you, that's the moral of these examples too. These red flags is that we need to trust what we see and hear and experience, and always make safety a priority. And so I think that we've been conditioned to kind of classify everything. It's just kind of how the human mind works. And I think that when we notice these things that are very mysterious and confusing and just like don't fit what should be in our life, the way a person should be that we think loves us, when we experience these red flags, I think that we automatically and unconsciously classify them on the spectrum. And it's kind of like on one end of the spectrum, it's like, well, it's really not a big deal. It's kind of strange. It's kind of weird, but it's nothing to really worry about. I just kind of took note of it. I noticed it, but I'm going to, brush it off. And then over here, and you've got all these little, positions all along the spectrum. And then over here, you have like a super obvious, you can't deny it, red flag. You know what I mean? And so, I'm looking at my notes. I actually wrote notes today. I'm looking at those. I've got cool and then hot. So the problem here is, number one, we can't see the entirety of everything on the spectrum. So if someone is doing something on the down low and they are scheming something that could place you in harm or exploit you or take advantage of you in some way, you're not going to see everything they're doing. You're only going to get bits and pieces. And when you get those bits and pieces, those red flags, they may hit down here on the not so big of a deal part of the spectrum, but they may also be doing these things over here that are a big deal, and you just haven't stumbled upon them yet. The good news is everybody makes mistakes, and everybody has, I think, what they call blind spots, like things that they do that they don't realize, or things they say that they don't realize. We're going to talk about some of that too. But I think the truth always comes out, but again, the whole point here is just to find that out quicker. And it's kind of like that whole concept of where there's smoke, there's fire. If that kind of helps. Now, here's kind of a cool example of, why we should take even the little red flags seriously. If you think about the spectrum, okay, of really serious and not so serious. If you think about the concept of fire, right? So you have red hot fire, and then you have blue, like a blue flame. And the thing is, we associate, even like in art, because you guys know I have an art background, we associate colors like blue with cool. We call them cool colors. But yet, blue is deceptively hot, just like red, way over here on the other side of the spectrum. So, it's kind of like truth is truth at all levels. That's just a little lesson, a little nugget of a lesson to apply and understand that what might seem like not a big deal that you catch or that you experience may actually be a really big deal, and you just caught a tiny portion of it, right? In other words, things can look one way, but they can truly actually be another, right? So, yeah, the point here is the red flags we catch can be that way too. So I'm going to go into these stories, and they're not like full-fledged stories, okay? These are just examples, but they are from real life stories, real life examples and things experienced, again, either by myself at some point in my life or by somebody that I know. So I hope these are helpful. So if a person is just talking about casually, if you're dating someone, okay, and they're just casually talking, their guard is down. And I say their guard is down because people who are cons are hiding their intentions, and they have to kind of be careful with what they share with you. An honest person doesn't have a guard up anyway, except to protect themselves. But they don't put a guard up as far as what they share, I don't feel like. So a person who is conning you is going to, be very controlled and careful in what they share, but things will slip. So this was actually something said to another person in a dating scenario. This person said, well, I'm young enough, it's okay if things don't work out, if I get married or we get married and they don't work out. I'm young enough, I can get married several more times. I don't think a person with integrity and true, good, genuine, good core set of values is going to think that way. So notice for just casual things said that indicate a person's values. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Another thing that was said was from one person who was engaged to someone else, and she said this to, I guess what she thought was an acquaintance or whatever, okay? And her words were, when showing her friend or acquaintance her fiance's house, the comment was, yeah, look at all this stuff I would get, if something happened to him. And it was even with the facial expression, right? Like, look, like, no, and I know you know this, but it's just, I'm reminding you that there are people who operate this way. But secondly, I know this is crazy, but I think sometimes that would probably be on the obvious end of the spectrum right there. If this guy had heard what she said, I think the wedding would have been called off immediately. But some of these things I'm going to share are going to be a little bit more subtle. But my point is, just don't dismiss this stuff. So, yeah. If you're dating someone and someone else, like their friend or even their sibling or family member or whoever, someone else in their life is constantly calling them when they're with you to see when they're coming home, that's a red flag. And in this particular real life story, what was actually caught at some point was that they were calling this person baby, right? So you have one person that's dating you, as an example, okay? And then they have a friend or a sibling or whatever. See, don't dismiss it. Again, be careful with labels. Just because a person is a brother or a sister or a cousin or a friend or whatever, don't make the assumption that things are as they seem if you are detecting strange things, because first of all, they shouldn't be calling this person like, when you coming home, constantly. Like, what does it matter? You know what I mean? Secondly, you're going to get your confirmation at some point that there's something more going on when you overhear them calling the person that was calling them to come home all the time like a nickname such as baby. So, true stories. If you have food allergies, I'm going to do this. Food allergies, only when you eat with a certain person, that's a big deal. Food allergies or bodily reactions to what you were eating. If you only have that when you're eating with one person, please don't dismiss that. I believe that drinks can not only taste funny, but they may taste fine and just smell funny. Anything that's off with your food or drinks is a big deal. If a person that you are in a relationship with, in any kind of relationship, if they are cooking for you and them, and they have a tray of whatever, potatoes, asparagus, broccoli, whatever it is, and you go to fix your plate when they're done, and they're like stressing out because you're pulling from the wrong side of the tray, or even furthermore, if they tell you flat out, like, this over here is what I made for you, and you're like, why? And they're like, well, I cooked this a little bit too long. It's kind of dry. I'll eat that. It's kind of dried out. Just let me have that. You have the good part. If they designate what part of the tray, the food platter, you need to pull from and eat from, again, it's not one thing. You have to zoom out and see the whole picture. If there's a lot, and sometimes it takes a long time, but you're gambling with your life sometimes when you're wanting to get that proof of multiple different red flags. It's a gamble. And I just want to say that. You don't want to live life paranoid, but you don't want to live life totally trusting and at the complete dismissal of these things. It's a big deal. Okay? Yeah. So, life insurance policies. If there's any kind of mystery around this, as far as what a person has taken out on you, okay, or who your beneficiary is or whatever, and it was not instigated by you, if it was your spouse or whatever, or a family member, please be careful. Please be careful. If there's anything that's a surprise in the process, like, I don't know, you didn't realize they were going to take out as much as they did or something like that. Okay, things that kind of catch your attention. Just please don't dismiss that. If you find yourself having a general feeling of unease around someone, even though everything should be fine, maybe you're having a lot of date nights. If you're married, maybe they're giving you a lot of flowers, but for whatever reason, when you're with them, something just feels wrong, and it feels wrong on a level that actually produces great concern within you. Please don't dismiss that. A lot of times, I've mentioned this recently, your feelings are your higher self trying to get a message across to your conscious awareness, and it's because these red flags may have been accumulating in your subconscious because you didn't. This is not a conscious process, but it's like you didn't want to admit these things to yourself, so they bypass your conscious awareness. They log in your subconscious, and then it's still, trying to warn you and communicate with you through your feelings to pull these things up into your conscious awareness. And you have to be strong enough to admit to yourself that this person you thought loved you may have other plans for you. But they may start finding random reasons to take you way out in the woods or away from people. What seems to be the case a lot of times in several situations that I know, that I've observed, is that right away, early on in the relationship, they seem to have a problem with, like everyone in your life, so that they can tell you things about these people that may or may not be true, to make you feel a negative way about people that have always been there for you or whatever. And look, I've even felt bad about people that someone I was in a relationship with was associated with, but it was, in my opinion, it was like a legitimate, like, gosh, that's not cool. It was a legitimate concern, So it's everything. You have to look at all of it. But if my point here is, these people, they try to isolate you. They try to isolate you from your family, and I know many different examples of this. And they also, if things progress, you might find that they have different excuses now, and the excuse is what logs in your conscious awareness, so that the true motive or the evidence of the true motive doesn't register, but it still gets logged back here. It will come up later if there's something to it. But they may be like, hey, let's go looking for land, or hey, let's take up hiking or whatever. And if that's in conjunction with all these other red flags, and you feel a great sense of unease, and especially one of the biggest red flags, I didn't write this down, but it's true, if there's not a lot of substance to your relationship, there's only like showy stuff, like maybe they give you beautiful Hallmark cards all the time, and maybe they're just very elaborate with what they put in the cards. That's kind of like proof that they can show to other people, like, look how much I loved this person, and they left, or whatever. Or gifts they buy you, or extravagant trips, or whatever. But when you're together, there's not hardly any connection. When you try to connect, they're they're put off, that you expect that from them and stuff like that. Those are huge. That's, to me, one of the biggest red flags, that you are being used and exploited for something. If you take a look at all the clues, you can put the picture together. And again, hindsight will, like after the fact, when you look back, as you find out more and more and more, I think the truth does come out. So, yeah. Again, a general feeling of unease, or if they try to take you way out in the woods, even if it's your spouse, please don't resist your intuition, what it's screaming at you, even if this person has a label in your life as your spouse or your mother or your friend. Okay, I think that they work however they have to, work things however they have to secure that title with you, because they know it's associated automatically with trust. Okay, and I think that we do automatically trust them at that point. And I think that is the trap that makes us bypass our conscious awareness when we do experience these flags. This is all life-saving stuff. Please don't ever let someone tell you that this is just complaining or being paranoid or sensitive. This is life-saving stuff. It can be, okay? It's a big deal. Another red flag. Sometimes they're gone for hours, shopping or whatever, but they come back. You think they're alone, but they come back saying we a lot. They slip up and say we. And you're like, we? And they're like, oh, I meant me. I meant when I did this. Pretty obvious. Let me just say, what they call cold empathy is really scary. If you're in a bodily emergency or any kind of emergency, and you need this person, and you go to them with this energy of like, oh my gosh, and they just kind of look at you like they're really controlled, and they're, oh, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? It's robotic and stuff like that. That's freaky. And I have a theory on this. I'm wondering if, because these people are faking with you much of the time, they may think that when you come at them with a sickness, or even if you're crying, or an emergency or whatever, that's maybe within your own body, it's not just external and easily observed. If it's something like that, they may assume that you're faking, because they work that way. They put on a show, they act, they manipulate. And so when you do that and it's genuine, you're like, and a normal person would be like, oh my gosh, how can I help? They would share. They would have that sympathy, empathy. They would share that in that energy with you, because you can tell, you can feel on an energetic level that their spirit is amplified and concerned just like you are. And so when it's not that way, it's really awful to experience. Okay, on that note, they have little to no concern for your well-being if you're sick or if you're really sad, crying, depressed, whatever. They get really impatient. They can fake concern for a little while. Again, it's going to be very controlled and just robotic, and they just tick boxes like, okay, if this happens, I should act this way. If this happens, I should act this way. But in reality, it's not organic, and you can kind of pick up on that. It's not genuine, and they're very impatient. They'll only do it so much, and they get really impatient. They'll grit their teeth. They'll look angry and frustrated when the situation doesn't call for that. Stuff like that. Okay. Now, if you wind up being sick for weeks or months, they might actually get so impatient that they move on, because they have a need. They have a goal. They have something going on that you're unaware of. Okay. So for sure, I would say they're not going to be around much. If someone's got something else going on, like a double life, they're not going to be around much if you're healing from something serious and it's taking time, okay? And they may do just enough to string you along if they are planning something or scheming something involving you. So be careful, okay? Now, they can get mad at you as a means to an end. So they can put on a show of being mad. Like, here's an example. Like, if you're in public, okay? The real life example was New Year's Eve at a place that offered like bowling and pool and things like that, right? Karaoke. And you had a group of people, and you have this couple who was in what the person thought was a great relationship, but their partner was just randomly very angry with them that night. Just fuming, just staring at them, didn't want anything to do with them, and they're thinking, what happened? Well, it's a show. It's a show. If you think about New Year's Eve, what's expected at midnight? Like a kiss. If you're in a relationship, that's kind of like the old tradition to kiss at midnight, right? Well, they don't want to be seen in a relationship just in case there's someone else at the place that they've told, hey, I'm single. You see what I'm saying? They don't want the fact that they're in a relationship to be exposed if they're running, I don't know, game, a lot of different relationships and stuff. So just notice stuff like that. If they're angry with you and you're like, I've done nothing, or why are you mad, and they won't explain it, there's something going on that you don't know. Okay. And on that note, they rarely want to be seen with you in various different public places, like church, for example. Okay, places that you would expect to go with your partner if you're in a serious relationship, and they're like, no, because whatever. And you're like, well, why not? Or there's a group of friends going out and you're dating, and they don't bring you. Okay. They won't introduce you to other people. If you are with them and they run into someone they know, they forget their name. So when you leave, they won't introduce you in the moment. It's like you're not even there. And then when you leave, they won't tell you a lot about that person. I don't really remember who that was. And you're thinking, they seem to know a whole lot about you, based on what little conversation I was witnessing. So just a lot of strange things. If your health is declining since being with someone, huge red flag, especially if they are a beneficiary in some way to any of your finances or property, okay? They can create the illusion of misunderstanding in most all of your conversations, and I think that it's to condition you to not get into conversations with substance to begin with. It's kind of like every time you try to have a conversation with this person, if it's almost like you're speaking different languages and you can't understand one another, you're eventually going to get like, well, there's no point. You're just going to be like, how was your day? And stuff like that, and keep it just kind of superficial, because anything more is they're going to take you on this, roller coaster ride of confusion and denial and misunderstanding, and sometimes it's just a total reluctancy to have the conversation. They'll just walk out of the room and be very uninterested, or they'll just give you the silent treatment for no reason. They never tell you what's going on. They avoid getting into conversations of substance. And I think it's because conversations with substance have, they're fluid, they're organic, and they flow. And they can't if they're hiding something from you, they can't let their guard down and have that kind of conversation with you, because they might slip. Again, remember how I was talking about how they'll say we? They might slip up. So they have to be very controlled. And so I'll say this. I think people who have come out of a bad situation, who are true and honest and transparent people like myself, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I don't lie. I don't manipulate and use people. I don't scheme and plan bad things. I don't have bad intentions. Sometimes we can seem that way in conversation. I think some of my videos may come across that way, that I'm kind of like hesitant, and the reason is there's a lot of things that I can't publicly share, and I have to be careful with that. So, like the details. So, there's a difference. They're always, or usually, online. A person can find random reasons to stay online, either in a separate room on the computer or on their phone, and ultimately they're just very secretive, and you're going to catch things about them being secretive. They may close down computer windows, browser windows, when you walk in the room, and it's just they say, oh, they were just done looking at the weather, but it happens every time you walk in the room, or there's just random things like that, right? That indicate they're very secretive. Here's one that's interesting. They can tell stories about other people, but the story really isn't about other people, okay? And I think sometimes they do this to see your reactions. They test you, maybe to see how much you know, to see, or it could be to see what things you care about, what things bother you, because again, they're going to exploit things like fear and confusion. They become tools for these people to keep you under control, right? So the stories that they tell about other people, this could be something that they are doing, or something that they're doing or doing to you or planning for you. And so I don't want to go too much into this, but there's a reason for everything they do. If someone is scheming and planning something, there's a reason. There's a reason. Even, no matter how mysterious this stuff is, there's a reason. So please don't dismiss it. Again, it might be to test you, it might be to scare you, and the reason may just be to make you feel like they are powerful in some way. They have something over you, over on you, or it could be a manipulative type of thing, which is a whole nother level. Okay, maybe both of those things. They can intentionally do a bad. I laugh. It's really not funny. It's just like, really, these people who live double lives, and I've known several people who have done this. Like people who have gone through not done this, but people who have gone through these experiences, and their partners were just conning them. They were with other people, and then in this other situation, I know a guy that he was dating a woman that was already married, and the married couple was playing and using him and exploiting him to see what they could get out of him. Just, anyway. So just remember, these people are busy. They're busy. They're juggling a lot, and they're going to want to get out of what would be normal obligations, especially like if you're married, or if you have a family, and it should, in a healthy family, both partners, both parents should want to be involved in a lot of different things, right? So what they can do is they can intentionally do a bad job on things. It's not just if you ask them, hey, could you put this together for our kid? It could be they could offer to put it together, and you let them, and then when they do it, for whatever reason, maybe something just tells you to go check it, and one of the legs is just barely on there, and if your kid went and sat on that little stool, it would have fell down, and you tell them, like, hey, you didn't even screw this one in, and they're like, yeah, I checked them, they were all good, and you're like, So again, we can all make mistakes. It's not a one-off thing that matters, it's all of it. And so when you go through enough of these experiences, you realize, well, I'm just not going to ask them for help anymore, and that's what they want. They want to have the freedom to be, going on those long shopping trips, coming back talking about we, or they want the freedom to be on the computer, or on their phone for a long time or whatever. Lastly, if you have a home camera system, if you catch them saying or doing things on camera, little or big things, don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it, okay? again, you're just going to add all of these things, these red flags, to the large collection of clues or signs, okay, that you already have, and it's going to paint a whole picture for you. It's going to be a nightmare, not a masterpiece, unfortunately, but it's going to ultimately be good for you, again, because it can prompt you to remove yourself from a situation that can be very dangerous, okay? So let me give you an example. If your health, one of my examples from earlier was, if your health has been declining ever since you've been with someone, okay, that's one thing. And you're like, kind of weird, but maybe just coincidence, right? Well, if you have this other layer of evidence, or a second sign that comes around, okay, where you catch them when they don't know, like on a home camera system or whatever, and they're on the phone with someone and they're saying, yeah, I don't know, maybe another year or two. Well, you know they're planning something. And if you know together you're not planning something, and there's all these other signs, it's, that should be important. Okay. Furthermore, if you find evidence that a person is cheating on you, like if you're married and you do find evidence that a person's cheating on you, I know several people this has happened to, okay? But they beg you to stay, even if you don't tell them you know. Whether you do or not, tell them that you know. If they beg you to stay, I mean, a normal, healthy, honest, true, good person is going to be like, hey, this isn't working out, and they're going to, be respectful and want to cut ties and move on before they are with another person. So if they're wanting to keep both going, again, there could be some goal they're working towards at your expense. So just be aware of that. Ultimately, you shouldn't have to play detective in a good, loving, healthy, true relationship of any kind. No. We should be enjoying figuring out mysteries with people who actually and genuinely love us. So I hope this has been entertaining at the least. I hope it has strengthened you, validated you, and ultimately I just hope that we're able to safely do what we need to do to help one another, or to share the message, so that people can be strong enough to break the bonds of their conditioning and their spells they've been put under, because that's essentially what it is, and that they can get to a place of strength where they are willing and able to bring these red flags to the forefront of their mind, realize what's going on, and take action, because it can be life-saving. So thanks so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I will see you again very soon.